Well, hello.
Hey, what's
Hi.
up?
Yes, we have a guest with us this week
Hmm.
and next week, maybe. We have,
Hi, I'm Betty.
yeah, Betty
Yes.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
are you
exciting.
excited?
Betty's been in our women's ministry and has been working with our Jericho Road, which is the Esther's house.
Mm.
And so she's really gotten involved since she uh, got drug in. No,
Literally.
she got drug in out of the cold.
Yeah.
No, she was handed a book one time and she's been in it ever since. And so we are
Yeah.
grateful. And it's been a while. It's been several years, hasn't it? It's
It
probably
has
been
been.
6, 7, 8, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, at least 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're excited that she's always our best fan, I
Oh,
think.
yes, yes.
She's always commenting and encouraging, and so we were excited that she wanted to come be a part of us for
Yeah.
a few times anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool. A year or two ago, you shared one of your favorite verses on here too. So if you want to go back and look at that on our YouTube. But yeah, so now you're back, and we're going to be talking about Mary, Mother of Jesus, and just kind of talk about this Easter time. But we kind of want to talk about Mary's life in general and just how important she was,
Mhm.
and as the Bible highly favored.
Yes. Wouldn't I love to have Jesus say I was highly favored, right?
Mhm.
I think many,
Oh yeah,
many
Yeah.
wanted to be Mary, right?
yes,
She has a powerful impact on many lives. And so I kind of thought we might just, not that we're going to go over Jesus's birth or anything like that, but the fact that, Mary was called to be his mom.
yes,
And she could have been anywhere from 13 to 16. That's kind of a marriageable age. So she was young, but she must have been very um, committed,
yes,
right?
yes.
I didn't come up with any other words to really say for her. It doesn't say a lot about her.
Mm-hmm. It's very meek, very.
Mm,
Um, I think has a. I'm trying to think of the word. It's like has a good heart. Very. Hmm. She has a good heart.
Yeah, she had a
She
thought.
had a heart after.
And she was very faithful. Sure, because at that time she was engaged, I'll say, engaged to Joseph,
Mm-hmm.
which meant that basically they were married, but not officially yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the angel of the Lord comes to her and says, you are highly favored,
That's right.
and you're going to be the mother of God, basically.
Yeah.
And just think, that as a young teenage girl, how how can that be? I'm a virgin.
Yeah.
That would be a
Mm-hmm.
typical response, but she said, let your will be done, not
know.
my will, but your will be done. If that's not faithful, because she could have been ostracized
Yes.
in her community because she was supposed to be a virgin and she's not, and poor Joseph.
Yeah.
Well, they think she's not because of her pregnancy, right?
Yeah,
But
that's right.
that's right. And I think that, these verses are kind of found in Luke because you can find all of the information about her. I think mainly I found it in Luke, and there's some in John.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, Luke is definitely like the source, especially for the Christmas story.
That's right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
usually the one like we read from. We get all the different
I
angels
know.
and aspects.
I know.
And I think her song's in there too, right?
It is in
Okay.
there. It is in there.
Cool.
And I think what was cool about what you said, being, your will be done, what she said. And then she also said, I am the Lord's servant.
Yeah.
And how cool is that?
Yeah.
So there were several times, and there's not a lot of times. I mean, it's not like she's peppered throughout the whole Bible per se as Mary,
Yes.
because she, they mentioned her when Jesus was coming, into the world and all of that and being born. And then they had him, I think before that, they went to Simeon to have a blessing put upon him, right?
right.
They went to Simeon and he had been waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of verses in Luke 2, I think it is, and 19 was one of them. I think that's where I wanted to land, but they were talking about just I don't know. It says that she pondered, but Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And I thought in my mind, what treasured memories. And I'm not sure if that was talking to Simeon or if that was when that's when the shepherds came and everything. So I guess that's kind of like a separate from Simeon, but it was kind of cool. 2:19 says that she pondered them in her heart, all the things that they had said. But can you imagine someone just saying how, thinking of all these little things happening, your baby is born in a or whatever you want to call it. Uh, and you put them in swaddling clothes and which was probably just a wrap,
Yeah.
and so anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. And then they eventually take him to the church, to the temple where Simeon's at. And one of the things, and that's in 235,
Mhm.
and that is, yes, or yea, a sword shall pierce through thine own soul also, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. And so poor Mary.
Yeah, she goes to the jail people left by
Yes. Yeah.
and also gets the words spoken over her.
Yeah. Yeah. It says in 34, it talks about Simeon blessed them and said unto Mary his mother, behold, this child is set for the fall and rising again of many in Israel, and for a sign which shall be spoken against. So, she was kind of like, I mean, to me, that would be almost like trepidation,
It
you know?
It's like, here it is. And she knew that the baby was God's son,
Yeah.
but still to hear these words as a young teenager, first time mother,
Yep.
it's very intimidating and it's very frightening, but yet she was able to maybe God give her the spirit back then to help her through that, because that
yeah.
was a lot for a young girl to understand and handle.
And I think she did understand it because then, okay, at 12, he goes to his father's house. He comes, he's lost.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you look around, you got all these family members and you don't see your kid,
Yeah.
12. And you're like, well, we were headed home and we're walking.
Yes.
Why isn't he
Why isn't he with us? And so, of course, he says, I'm in my father's house. Don't you know? Don't you know, mother?
Yeah.
And he says that a lot.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Don't you know?
Don't you know?
Yeah.
No.
Did you not know? Because in the Old Testament, it tells us all these things, and
But she must have had to listen to all that, because remember, women back then weren't reading
Yeah.
the scrolls. It was usually a man, and usually the men were in one part of
And-
the synagogue,
Mhm.
and the women were in a further out away from the synagogue. But she must have heard these things from whoever, I'm not really sure,
Yeah.
that she would know. And maybe he meant that, Jesus meant, well, that the angel came and told you, kind of thing. And she's like, okay, I hear you.
yeah,
Yeah.
forgive me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yep. And so, then she has this opportunity for a big host, big wedding. And it doesn't really say who was the bride and groom. It doesn't say. They must have been family. I'm guessing. Could have been a brother. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because she was worried about the wine, so it could have been a family member, right?
Hmm.
And then she says, just do what he says.
Yeah.
She complains to him, I guess, in a sense. She complains to him or tells him, maybe not complain.
Yeah.
And then he says, it's not my time yet. My time. Woman, I know. Woman, this is not my time. And I found that so interesting. It's almost like, okay, fine. Just do what he says.
Yeah.
It's
It's the mother thing.
But he did it.
Yes, he did.
And that's what's so cool. I don't know. There was a mother-son relationship there. Don't you think? A little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And of course there was one more time that they were all coming to him trying to ask him questions, and the whole family was, this is my family.
Yeah.
Talking about the disciples. This is my family.
Yeah.
And it's not just mother. That's my home. These are, that's right.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that was a little bit of a what?
Yeah.
I think she had to be reminded a few times
Yeah.
of who he truly was, and she knew it, but because he was her baby.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
like you said, it is an actual mother-son relationship.
Mhm.
They did love each other for each other. And, I know that's so important because it does, he experienced that, he can experience those things like too.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of like a beginning, and I know we've already had Easter by the time we get to our little podcast here, so we kind of wanted to talk about after or during. And I have to confess, I mean, have you seen the Passion? The Passion?
No, I never saw that.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, you can only see it once. Did you see it?
They were like, "Hey, I think you're not enough to be able to watch it." And I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
But
Yeah.
it
Oh man,
Yeah.
kicked your butt.
yeah, he was thinking about it. I was still like brain.
Yeah, I don't want to watch it again. It was a one-time movie. I think it was important
Yeah,
to see because you could feel and see the agony and the pain and a piece of it, not even complete. But I in Sunday school, not in Sunday school, in Bible study, the morning group of ladies, we were studying about that, and I thought, let me just do this little clip. And after I played it, I was like, I looked back at the girls. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. It was heavy. It was heavy, and it makes your heart heavy. And so I think, well, you're fixing to have a baby, and it won't be a son. You have a son, or
Yeah, I have a son.
you have a son?
Son and two
And I have a son, and I don't know that that matters if it was a son or a daughter. It's a child that you
That's
have.
right. It's your first one.
That's right. And it's your
And
first one, and he was special.
Yeah.
And she knew that he was going to be. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but when somebody says something about your kid, you get your hackles up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Right or wrong, you still get your hackles up a little bit. My mom used to be famous for that. Boy, don't mess around with her kids. She'd walk right into the superintendent's office. Yes, she
Yeah.
would. She had no bother. That did not bother her one little bit. So I can't imagine. And that was the part that I wanted them to get is how she, walked and saw. And she ended up at the bottom of the cross,
Yeah.
looking up. I don't know how close she was, but it could have been because women were not really allowed to be in positions of really doing that. And yeah, and for her to be there, and she was there with some other ladies, and we're going to be talking about that in another session about some of the other ladies that were at the cross with her. But how hard.
That must have been very hard because for a couple reasons. One, she had to be close enough for her to hear her son say to John, the disciple he loved, which I think because John was the youngest, probably.
Yes.
He was the youngest, and he was, because even afterwards, when Mary Magdalene goes tells him, the tomb is empty, and Peter and the
Yeah.
runs to the one he loved ran first because he was younger.
Yeah.
But he waited for Peter to come in. They both looked
Yeah.
and Jesus' body not there and
Yeah.
the scripture there.
Yeah.
So I think that they were close. Mary was close enough to him. And
This is what can I throw something?
sure, go ahead.
Because I was doing some research and I had read it before. And then again, I read it in in a study. Was it my study Bible? I think it was the study Bible or a reference Bible that I was looking at. And Salome, which we'll
Right.
talk about, she was with them, she was one of the women. And then we know that he went to James and John first as disciples, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then I believe they were cousins because Salome was John's mom.
Right.
Okay. When she's not mentioned at the cross as Mary's sister.
That's right.
And I believe Salome was Mary's sister. So I think that John was a cousin,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that would make sense to me. I mean, I'm not going to swear by it, but just some of the did take down some verses that kind of confirms that a little bit.
Yeah, and
It makes
also
sense.
how she would feel comfortable in telling Jesus, like, hey, my boys, like, give them a thing at your right hand, on your right and left.
I was thinking about that with my sister. And I thought, yeah, she would say that to me. You think, can we work something out? Or don't you think, or would you think he's got a special spot? Yeah. And then that would also show, that because John would be a cousin, he would be familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably did have a connection. Maybe he was younger than Jesus and he was more kind of attached to him because of that.
Right.
He was the young
He was.
yeah. So he was like, okay, taking on doing, like, probably his most protected
And to have a
Right.
relationship with someone like that for a long period of time,
yeah.
he probably did feel like he was the one that Jesus loved,
Yeah.
So that's my, in a way, theory, but there are verses, and we can talk about them later, but there are verses that kind of, there's this verse here that says this, and then this one kind of connects with that. And so in my mind, John is a cousin.
That's what they think a lot,
Yeah.
they're not 100% sure though. There is no true anything in the Bible that says
doesn't
the
say
lady
he's your
was
cousin.
Mary's sister.
But
Because it says Mary and then Mary's sister. They never actually name her, but she is in there, and we know
And
who
we
is
know
her children.
Shalom, and we know Shalom was at the cross because they talked about her being one of the women.
Right, and
Yeah,
isn't
that would make sense,
that
right?
would make sense because your sister would be you.
She'd be right there beside you.
Because you couldn't, back then when people had died or they were, as far as them having ceremonial type deaths and things like that, Jewish people would wail
Mhm.
and weep out loud. That was a normal custom.
Oh yeah.
But when Jesus was crucified, women were not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So they had to weep inside and
Mhm.
silently, and Mary had to also do that. And to see, like you said, your son, your firstborn,
Yeah.
it's like, how can you, I mean, my son is my firstborn, and like Zeb, my son's going to be 50 in August, and
Yeah,
I
I
would
was not going to be 50, just so you know.
oh, okay.
He's like, I'm going to be 50. No, I'm not going to be 50. He'll be part of the way.
Yeah. But still, even though they're like 50,
Yes.
I'm still gonna be like, what? That's my son.
That's my son.
I brought you into this world. By God, I can take you out.
So I think maybe we should read the verses in John,
Yeah.
if that's okay. You want to read those, Jen? Verses, let's see, John 19:25 through 27.
Yeah. So we see them standing at the cross or by the cross, and
Mhm.
but standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her to his own home. Yeah, and like had to be close enough to be able to hear.
Right.
And Jesus is
I mean, he saw him.
hanging
Oh, I
on
know.
the cross,
Hanging
like
almost to death.
yeah,
Yes.
like they have the platform, or they're able to
Yeah.
push up,
Yeah.
but there's a nail. It's not comfortable.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So you kind of have to push up and speak through that agony
Uh-huh.
so that you can actually,
Yeah. Speak.
Yeah.
and then probably he went back down, kind of taking a break.
Yeah.
What you can of it.
Yeah.
I just, because I thought of it, what a son's heart
Yes.
to think about your mother at a time when you were suffering so,
Yeah. Well, because he's God.
he's God. And this was, after this, Jesus, knowing that all things were now accomplished.
Hmm.
I, I mean, that was his last accomplishment. You know what I'm saying? In the son.
Right, that's
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah, that the scripture might be fulfilled, said, I thirst. And that was just part of the Old Testament. If you go back to that, it talks about thirst. But I just thought that was, and then he's within the couple of verses, he's finished, it's finished. So, yeah. So I don't know, there's something about that
Yeah, and
that kind of just touches your heart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And of course, we have many that think Mary's there are some that really think she's the one that we should, I'm not going to say worship, but that we kind of put on a pedestal. And really, in reality, the only pedestal is Jesus. The only one we put in the front of us is
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And Luke 1:48. Let's see, well, if we can't find that. Was that one of the verses anybody else had?
Luke 1:48.
Yeah. Did I do it right? Yeah.
Mm.
For he hath regarded the low estate of his handmaiden, for behold, from henceforth all generations shall call me blessed.
Yeah.
And that was when she was, kind of the very beginning stages.
And at this point, like she knew that she was playing an important role.
Yes.
She was also humble about it, and like
Yeah.
it wasn't like, aha, I get to do this, and I mean, it was a joyous thing, I think, but not a haughty or prideful
Mm.
thing.
that's right.
No. So I don't know. That's pretty cool. And I mean, if we go back to, I mean, you could almost go back to Proverbs 31 woman when they talked about your children will call you blessed.
Yeah.
And here
Yeah.
she was going to be called blessed, and she has been. I mean,
Mhm.
what an example
Yeah.
for some gives over to God's will and not her own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would say, do you really have to do it? Do you have to do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do it, honey. Don't do it. So yeah. But I think that I'm trying to think of anything else that I had, but that's kind of where I was at with it,
Yeah. Yeah, I think with that part of it, I think that's pretty much it, unless you had something else to add.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
So I know that might have been kind of short and sweet. I don't know, but it was sweet.
It was indeed sweet.
And she didn't have him for very many years. I mean, she had him for a long time. And to think that, I don't know, there's just something about a mother that has a son that turned, that had that kind of a purpose. And I think we all, I mean, our children all have a purpose,
That's right.
Yeah.
and that they fulfill it is, I think, a bright light in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
can all feel what she felt, maybe in a sense about, the purpose being fulfilled. But
Yeah. Well, I feel like even for those who are parents or are going to be, it is a thing of, and I have friends that have older kids, and they're just like, okay, I have to let them walk their life, walk their testimony.
Yep.
And sometimes it can be a painful thing to
Very
watch.
painful things.
it
Extremely
can be.
painful. That's when you know that if you're not a praying woman, you will
You
be.
better be.
Yes,
You
you
better
will
get on
be,
your
because
knees,
only,
right?
I can remember with my son, he went into the Marines. I thought, really? You want to go into the Marines? Oh yeah, they're the best. Well, they may be the best, but I'm from the era of Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I had a cousin who was a Marine in
Yeah.
Vietnam, and those were the ones that got killed the first and the most.
Yeah.
And I tell him, no, did. He went he went through his training in South Carolina. And at the graduation, the commander or whatever he's called
Yeah.
got up and said, because had been from Vietnam, and he made the comment, yeah, in Vietnam we were there, and it was, there was enemies shooting at us and such. And there was a Marine that got shot that was laying like kind of out in the middle. And he says, I was in this kind of dug hole or whatever with somebody who was in the Navy that was with me. And the guy that was been shot in the middle, brother, help me. And so he says, I had to go get him. And the Navy guy says, you're going to get killed. He says, I can't leave him. He's my brother. He runs there and brings him to the foxhole.
Yeah.
And the guy said to him, I knew you wouldn't leave me.
Ah,
After I heard that, I said to my husband, that's fine. He went to their nice little camp. I don't want him being in here anymore. Thank you very much. You know, and it was just
Yeah.
like, and there is actually a law that if you have an only child, a
oh
son,
yeah, yeah,
or because of World War II, there was a family, like four
yeah.
men that were the same family, and they were all killed, which meant that cut their entire
The entire
family
generation.
line.
Yeah.
So, so when you only have one son, and that would be it. But, no, I didn't take him out, but
Yeah.
that's what I
Wanted
wanted.
naturally.
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and it was like then after he gets out of that, he decides, well, he's going to be a police officer in DC. And I said, don't you think I have enough gray hair? So I just cannot even imagine
Yeah.
how Mary would be there seeing that, not wanting to go and get who was, those Roman soldiers and giving them a good speaking to.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
for?
Yeah.
It's just, but
But the thing is, she said, "Your will be done"
yeah,
Yep.
in the very beginning, and so she knew that God's will needed to be done through Christ and her Son. So,
Yep.
yeah, pretty cool. Good way to
Yeah.
end that. Yeah, I like that. So,
Right.
yeah, so we're gonna be talking about some more women that
Yeah.
really God, really got allowed to be a part of that, and when women weren't necessarily
Yeah.
reliable.
have their, they weren't able to have their,
Standard.
yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't really, looked upon in a way that they would be valuable, and
Yeah.
he absolutely, had value for women.
And he
Oh, yeah.
absolutely did. And that is a big thing that you can see that it was turned everything upside down. And upside down was because women were not valued, and he valued women very, very much.
He valued people,
Yes.
and that's why he wanted to make sure that they couldn't twist it, I think, to say, I'm dying for the men.
Mm-hmm.
He was dying for men and women.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, for all of
All
us.
all who come to him.
Then, now, and in the future.
Yep. So we'll talk more about that next time.
We will. So I guess we'll catch you on the other side.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.